to another episode of What You Doing podcast. My name is Matt. Thank you as always for checking out the new episode. This time I am incredibly excited to be sitting down to chat with Snow about her new TTRPG Soul Cemetary. We recorded this. The crowdfunding campaign had just finished with a very successful campaign drive to fund a print version as well as some fun little extras. Snow was one of the people I wrote down as great to have when I got there, big air quotes. So thank you to Charlotte for bullying me into emailing her and getting her on the show. You'll hear more from me in the outro, so let's just get to the interview. Oh my god, is that Yoshi? That's adorable.
Yeah, I have a pink Yoshi and a little Kirby.
I love it.
What's up there?
I love it. He looks like he's up there because he did something wrong, like he's being punished.
Well, he is now because I didn't pack him with the rest of my stuffies, so I don't really know where to put him.
That is fun. We moved about 2 years ago. We moved from Florida where we are now. And there's the worst part of moving, like we said, putting all of your stuff in a box and having to move every single thing you fucking own. But the very, very close second is when you're like, okay, all of my books are packed, and you turn around and you see 3 books and you're like, where were you?
Yep.
I looked everywhere for all of the books. Where the fuck did you come from?
I've got 2 books that I forgot to pack because I was like reading them. So now I'm like, I guess I'll just go in my book bag. Yeah,
those are your reading books. Those are the I have these during the move for reading.
Yeah. That's my favorite part of it is organizing.
It's so good when you're like, as terrible as the packing is, the unpacking is great because it's so fun. You're like, ooh, look at all these books that I didn't know I had. I didn't know we had that. We're about to do that this weekend. We're unpacking the closet full of all the boxes from when we moved, and I'm so excited to be like, what the hell's in there? Who knows? That's exciting. A bunch of gifts I've already paid for. We're gonna talk about Soul Cemetary, which congrats. Closed today. I was looking at it today. I pulled up the page to be like, let me look at this to make sure I have all my information about this right. And then I was like, it was like ended at 4:01, and I was like, it's 4:01. What did I finish? Did I make this end? Did they shut the door when they saw me coming? This was so specific.
Exactly. They were waiting for it.
But no, congrats. It's always so great to see everybody's projects fund, everybody finish and hit all their fun little goals.
Yeah, it looks like everybody for Pocketopia funded, which is astounding. That's so exciting.
I hope that the idea of wrapping everything in a group like that makes people more curious to check out other projects when they see like 57 of 61. I hope that drives people to go, oh, what else is there? What hasn't funded? What's interesting? I hope that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it worked. I was totally, because it's like a whole new thing, like there's zine month in February and stuff, but this is like a whole new thing. So I was like, I have no idea how it's gonna go, but we'll see.
It worked for this one. And it's Backer Kid. They did the Mothership month thing forever ago. That seemed to work out well for everybody. And
well, I think it did good. I feel like Mothership always does really good. People like Mothership.
Despite it not having a sneak skill.
Oh.
It's just the joke I make all the time. It's stupid.
Gotta start some discourse.
It's a joke. It's a joke for me. Is what it is. Like, I don't care if it doesn't have a sneak skill. It's just that Quinn's review made me laugh so hard because I immediately went to a Discord with a bunch of friends of mine where we talked, because we're all TTRPG nerds. And so we, of course, all watched the Quinn's videos immediately. And I watched the Quinn's video and I was like, the funniest part about that Quinn's video is at whatever time he talks about how there's not a sneak skill and there really should be a sneak skill. And then later in the video, he goes, yeah, but what I really love about Mothership is how open it is, that it makes it a conversation. You can kind of decide what you want. And I was like, all I'm going to say, I'm just going to put these two quotes next to each other and walk away.
I think Sean McCoy wrote like a whole blog post about why there's not a sneak skill.
He probably did. Yeah, Sean feels like the type of guy that would be like, here's why I made this decision. There you go.
Yeah, Sean's blog is really good. I always love when he writes stuff. He's got some good thoughts.
I always forget that Sean is the guy that did Mothership. So like he'll have like a post come up or something. He'll post something. I'll go, oh, who's this guy? Oh, right. For whatever reason, it just doesn't stick.
He keeps himself out of the limelight pretty well, I think. Which is probably smart. You can stay off social media as much as possible is probably a good idea.
Imagine being offline.
I don't think I can.
No,
how did Twitter too much?
Listen, there were online people back when there were newspapers. Those are the people who would write in letters to the editor and would, respond and in the personal ads and stuff like that. Yeah, those were the original posters.
Yeah. They were good at it too.
Yeah. Do you know how powerful it is to like write down and be like what was there was the I brought this up when I was talking to Rowan. I think there was the Rascal article that Thomas did about like the old D&D zines, and they would be like to whoever wrote in the August episode or issue. I think when you roll initiative, and I was like, that's so powerful that you wrote a letter to a magazine to talk shit on somebody from the previous magazine. That's incredible.
I feel like there used to be that like environment on YouTube where people would do like response videos. I feel like we need to bring that back with like not just like quote retweeting on Twitter, but like we should be writing essays and then like writing essays against those essays. And
you have to write a script. You have to have editing.
Yeah. To get at least 1,000 words to form your thought. Let's start there.
You have to submit a thesis to the council, and then the council will read it into the notes, and then we'll have a quorum over it, and we'll see what points of merit you have.
That's what Gen Con should be. Gen Con should be all of us yelling at each other's blog posts, like a Plato and Socrates moment.
Yeah, like a real society. We gotta submit our motions, and then they go around the room and they see who has grievances and who has arguments. And so hi everybody, welcome to What You Doing podcast with Matt. Today I'm sitting down. Incredibly, we definitely planned this. It was definitely when I wanted to do this. I definitely didn't forget to send an email or anything like that. I'm sitting down with Snow. Snow, say hello.
Hi.
We are discussing Soul Cemetary, which just finished its campaign on BackerKit as part of Pocketopia, successfully funding well and above the goal, getting all kinds of extra fun little physical doodads. Before we dive into it, because I'm always so aware of this when I listen back to these to edit. Before I get too excited, woo. Snow, go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody. Give us a little intro, a little blurb of who you are, what you do, and whatever.
So yeah, I'm Snow. I'm a game designer / writer. I made Soul Cemetary. I think the game that people would know me for is probably .dungeon. Or maybe Songbirds. I think those were probably my two biggest ones. Yeah, I like designing games. I can't stop designing games, and when I'm not designing games, I'm writing essays about designing games. So that's what I do. That's all I do.
When I'm not designing games, I'm writing about designing games, and if I'm not doing that, God has ended me for my hubris.
I'm sleeping and dreaming about what I'm going to write about games.
So I said I would save my my effusive compliments for Soul Cemetery for this part of the podcast, and I did. Soul Cemetery is so good. I read it. I've read it twice. It's very good.
I'm glad.
It was very funny because I started reading it and I was like, oh, this is not what I expected. And then I kept reading and then I got to the end and I was like, yes, this was good. And then I read it again today before the podcast to have everything fresh in my brain. And guess what? It's still really good. It continued to be very good.
usually I make it so it gets worse, but I guess it
A
didn't
lot
do
of
that, so.
a lot of games get worse the second time you read them. It's like it's a thing that happens. It's a lot of the like excitement has worn off, and you're just like, oh, it's just okay. It's just D20 rollover. That's all right.
Words. Get out of here.
The book didn't magically transport all of itself into my brain. I got to read this again.
I love reading things more than once, which is not something I used to be able to say. But now, when I read a book, I'll read it like 5 times, and each time will make me think differently about it. So that's weird. How does it do that?
Like a book, like a novel, or a book like a game specifically?
I mostly read nonfiction, so essays and stuff like that. But I also, there's a couple books I read a bunch. And sometimes I'll reread some older games that I've already read. Like once a year I'll probably read Vincent Baker's Kill Puppies for Satan, because that book always blows my mind when I read it. I'll read Flying Games from J. Dragon. And when I reread those, it feels almost more like literature, I think, and I get something new from them each time. And Kill Puppies for Satan has mechanics, but we don't have to get into that because it's a little graphic, I suppose.
you know, I'm familiar enough with the name. I don't think I've read it. Now I'm gonna write that down.
Well, believe it or not, it's a game where you kill puppies for Satan.
You don't say.
It's very straightforward. And it's written. I don't know. It's a game that I try to get everybody to read just because it's like so unlike a lot of what games are now. And I think we need more. I think we need more little freak games like that.
Listen. 2024 to 2025 already has been an amazing year for little freak games.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I'm super excited. I think so much of what makes people excited about games is rooted in just being a little weirdo, being a little freak about it.
Yeah, that's something I've been saying for a very long time. When it comes to most things, but like I think most people just want to be a little guy. Mm-hmm. That's why we play these sort of role-playing games. We just want to be a little guy. We want to do our little thing. We like pretending. We like being something else. Mm-hmm. And it's like a very natural thing. Like we give voices to our cats. Because that's what we do. It's just what humans. I think we've probably always been doing that since the dawn of sentience. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
immediately just pretend to be something else. As
long as we've had cats, there have been little cat voices. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, definitely. Making a funny voice to make fun of your friend. I'm sure that's like one of the first jokes that was ever told. Like,
oh, here comes Dave. Oh, I'm Dave. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
I got a new car.
That was the first role-playing game.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, that was the first TTRPG. It was fuck Dave and his new car. I love it. God, I love when a game has a good little bit of mechanics. I love nice little fun crunchy systems. But also sometimes a game is just like you said, you have a silly voice, you pretend to be a little guy, and everybody has a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite games are games that like give you a character instead of like you making one. Like sure, you probably get to make a couple decisions. But like John Harper's Lady Blackbird is a game that I talk about a lot because you just play as one of the crew members or like passengers on the Lady Blackbird. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to get to be like an actor and be given, a character and think about, what would they do? Or like, I think there's a great like interplay between being told like who a person is and then who you are and then like what you make together sort of like creates something unique even if you didn't make the character. So I'm all about pre-gen characters from now on. That's like that's the new tech.
Yeah, I do remember there was a good couple days on my TikTok, because I've a lot of TTRPG friends on TikTok. It's kind of how I came to TTRPGs in the broader sense, more recently. I almost said more modernly, and that makes me sound like I'm an ancient like sage from a cave. Era. Yeah, like ugh. But I do remember there was a bit of a discussion about like it was about when it was around when Eat the Right came out, and people were like, "Are pre-gens good? Are pre-gens bad? How do you feel about pre-gens?" Blah 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 blah. And you know, my thoughts were kind of similar to yours, of just like, you're doing a game where you're vampires killing Nazis. Like, what weird thing are you gonna come up with, Gary, that's so much different than this guy I just handed you? Like, come on, take this guy. There you go.
Yeah, interpretation is like 90% of art, and so like getting a character doesn't necessarily mean that you're being limited. You get to interpret them. It's just like being given, you know, like in video games do it all the time when they give you like 3 dialogue choices and you wouldn't say any of those. And you have to role play in that moment. What would this character say? That's like, you know, it's a tabletop game, but it's also a tabletop role playing game. And I think at least for me, I've been trying to lean into the role playing part a lot more with things that I've been making more recently.
I think that's a great segue to talk about Soul Cemetery, because we could sit here and talk about role playing in video games for a minute. So Soul Cemetery is like I said, it was not what I expected when I started reading it. I don't know what I expected, but I was very pleasantly surprised, and you know, I don't think hearing you say like, oh, I love pre-gens, I love role play, is not surprising, having finished Soul Cemetery. As a very quick basic overview, Soul Cemetery is about coming home after the death of your father to find your childhood room the same as you left it, and kind of falling back into the old habit of playing the survival horror GameCube game that you loved growing up, which made me immediately turn to dust. Hearing the phrase GameCube game of your childhood,
Right.
I immediately crumbled. But the game the game is called Soul Cemetery, and the game of the book versus the video game in the fun snow way of the game is the game that you're holding, but the game is the game in the game, and so you're playing by playing the game, you're playing the game. And
yeah, you get it exactly.
Yeah, it's a very interesting solo game that is not really journaling, but is also prompt based. It's like if hey, if you're listening to this, just go buy it, just do it. If you bought the California
copies too.
Oh, it's amazing. If you bought the California Relief Bundle, you have it. So go read it, and then listen, buy it again. Give Snow some money. The thing I always say. I feel like the closest thing I would compare it to is like a choose your own adventure book, where the story is happening. The story is what the story is going to be, and a lot of what you are, a lot of what the game is. We're gonna start getting meta here, and we're gonna start getting a little philosophical. Let me push my glasses up. A lot of what the game is what you're bringing to it, what your interpretation is, what your feelings are about these prompts. I'm shout outs to the bathroom trip interlude being just pitch perfect. As a person who also
a real life experience.
Yeah, as a person who absolutely remembers and struggled with those late nights, like, okay, it's really dark, I just got to go to the bathroom and get back and not freak out. It'll be fine. It's just so perfect. I'm just gonna sit here and say nice things about it the whole time. There's no interview. This is just me saying nice things about your game. Deal with it. Um,
Did you I made it very hard to see, but there is a face on that black page
is
next to
there?
the bathroom. There
Oh,
is.
I was sitting there. I
I
was like,
might have made it too hard to see, but it's there.
I do always wonder with stuff like that. I still have it open because, of course, I do. I do always wonder with stuff like that is because I remember I'm reading it as a page and not a spread, and then I saw the spread on the backer kit page, and I was like, oh, see, that's great. Like that's so evocative. That's so enveloping. No, I wonder if it just doesn't come through. The joy.
I made it very hard to see. It's like a black background, and then the face is like very low opacity, and then there's like another texture over it, and then another black thing on top of it. So it's very difficult, but I put it there for like, I think the idea, at least for me, was that like if you were like reading it like late at night at your computer, that maybe you would see it, or maybe you would think you would see it. But no, that whole segment was very much my entire childhood. I used to be, and still am to a degree, like deathly afraid of the dark. And how I tried to basically describe, like, that house is my childhood house. And as a kid who was afraid of the dark, the way that house was set up was designed to kill me. Because the bathroom door was like off the kitchen in the stairwell to the basement.
That's
so I
evil.
had to look down the basement stairs every time, and absolutely, I kept imagining like a David Lynch scenario, like in Mulholland Drive, when the witch pops out from behind the dumpster. I kept waiting for something to creep around the corner of the basement every time I would go to the bathroom. It was not a fun time.
And that's the worst.
Happen as much anymore. But.
And that's the worst part of it, right? Is the anticipation, is the feeling that you know it's going to happen, and you're like, when is it going to happen? Just when is it going to just happen already? You know, you'd probably be less scared.
Jumped out and scared me, then.
Yeah, you're like, okay, cool. Thank God I can go to the bathroom. Like, whatever. So yeah, Soul Cemetery is written in the style of a video game manual. There's so much like game ephemera tucked into it. I went back and was skimming through Dot Dungeon again as like your other game that I would put the closest to that, to sort of be like, okay,
a game
like
about a game, yeah,
right. Like what are other examples? What are other things? And I guess like let's just start at the top. Like, what inspired you to make a game that was even less of a game than Dot Dungeon? Like, Dot Dungeon is a game about a game. This is so like on like an XY thing of like, is a game whatever. It would be so far to the edge of what a game is. It's almost it's almost like a poem game. Like, it's almost like someone like oral traditioning you a game.
Yeah, I would say there's probably two like big inspirations. The first one is that there's a Super Eye Patch Wolf, who's my favorite little Irish YouTuber, made a video about fake video games, and I have been sort of like obsessed with unfiction, which is sort of like the YouTube creepypasta videos, basically. But like that and fake video games, I've always been fascinated with fake media within media. So that's definitely like, that was like part of the inspiration for Dot Dungeon, and definitely the big inspiration for this. And then like mechanics wise, or like writing wise, my friend Thursday, who designed Hardcase, which is an amazing sci-fi game, he turned me on to this game called Public Access, which is a Brindlewood Bay game. So Brindlewood Bay is, the game about basically being the Golden Girls solving mysteries. But public access takes like its sort of like formula and like mechanical like lyricism and makes it about solving horrors that are a little different, but they have some like things that are very much up my alley. Like one of the mysteries is like a haunted arcade cabinet, and it very much uses that idea of like, to do the mission you just go through these prompts, and usually you discuss them as a group, and like your character sheet can like interface with them and like can change the outcome of different stuff. And so I wanted to sort of do that, but make it a like singular, like a single person experience where you would just be sort of like forced to think about these things, and very much like how the lyric game movement, like before it, where the reading is like the play, because that's something that I've always been very much interested in exploring. So I think those two things, you know, my love of unfiction and fake video games, plus being shown this game that sort of like made my mind process games differently, led me to writing this and like one night spree, you know, edited and stuff later, but like the majority of the writing was done like in the middle of the night one night when I was just like struck. I was like, oh, I need to write this. And I'm too scared to go to the bathroom.
I could go to the bathroom or I could write this game. Let's just let's just do this.
2,000 words later and we're done.
Yeah, I had to go look up the Super Eye Patch Wolf video you mentioned, because I still haven't watched that one. That's one of the ones I keep not picking over, but one of those things of just like, I don't have 2 hours. You know. Yeah.
All I do is watch YouTube, so.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm also a degenerate. I just, you know, you make a podcast and all of a sudden your time goes out the window. It's in a weird way.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it takes a lot of time to like sit down and talk to somebody for 90 minutes, but then you got to like listen back and edit it and do show notes and figure out hosting. Yeah. It's a lot.
That's why I only make like one YouTube video every year, basically.
I like the idea that you have like a checklist of just like, okay, yeah, I did it. See you next year. Recurs yearly. Like, all right, yeah, tell me. I'll see you in 10 months. Get out of here. Yeah, and I love fake video game horror. Like, there's so many weird. Not even like there are horror video games, and then there are video games that are fake video games that are actually horror video games, and then there's the true bottom of the iceberg level, which is YouTube videos about fake video games that are fake and actually horror, and that's the sweet spot.
I made one of those for Soul Cemetery.
Did you? Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, I basically wrote like a little creepypasta, and filmed a fake video essay for it, basically.
How did I not find this? That's incredible.
I think it's on the itch page. I don't know. I might not have posted it there, but yeah. No, it's fun. I don't know. Yeah. I would love to do more fake video essays.
I like fake video essays. That's the funniest.
Yeah. I think if I could just make like even this book that I have right now is like a collection of essays about a fake book. Like a book that doesn't exist. And I'm so excited to read it because it's like everything that I love about media.
That's such a neat idea.
I gotta have more fake things inside of video games, inside of tabletop games. It's like a inception here of media.
I feel like that's I feel like that's such a specific thing with Soul Cemetery of being like that specific generation of games, like the PS2 GameCube era, where it felt like so many video games that came out during that time it felt like they had infinite secrets. It felt like there could be anything going on in there. And I think it's an interesting combination of like just having like a barely burgeoning internet, you know, where you would have information about these things, but not enough that you could know definitive, not enough that we didn't live in the data mine era where the second a video game comes out, everybody knows about the secret sword hidden in level 3 and here's how you do it, and there's 17 guides written on websites and a 5-hour video on how to do it. We used to be a society. Video games used to come out and that was it. That was it. You maybe bought the guide if you had $20, and if not, you just had to figure it out, homie.
There's that. I always think about Shadow of the Colossus was one of my favorite video games from that era and just in general. And the fact that like probably even still to this day, people think that there's still secrets hidden in people still think there's secrets to the point that like there is a YouTube channel that is dedicated to completely decompiling the game and showing you everything that's in the game. That is something that I think is a little lost in the sort of everybody has all the information immediately. And it definitely makes horror games a little less spooky in that way, at least. Of like, you never really know. Like playing Resident Evil 4 for the first time on the GameCube. Granted, that's not the spookiest Resident Evil, but it was still like, I think it being on the GameCube in a time when you couldn't learn everything about it made it a lot spookier. And then games like Clock Tower and Fatal Frame, the idea that there could be things in the game that you would never see is pretty, I think it's pretty special and something that is not as common.
And like you said, like especially horror games, like just had this mystique of who knows what the hell's gonna happen. You know, who knows, like, oh, I hear, and like the sort of playground network, right? Of just like, oh, I hear if you beat Resident Evil 2 in 5 hours, you unlock like the secret castle, and then some games did shit like that, you know? Like I think like Castlevania Symphony of the Night is a game that has a lot of weird secrets like that, and that fed into a lot of those weird rumor mills where, you know, I grew up at a time when, you know, people would talk about Pokemon where it'd be like, you know, oh yeah, you use strength on this, and then there's Mew and all of this, and those things kind of do exist, especially in old games like that, like games of that era. And hey, still now, but games of that era were so buggy and so weird and like mostly working, but also kind of broken that sometimes stuff like that would happen. Sometimes you could run too quick and get clipped in a wall and see the geometry and see behind the level, and who knows what the hell that is. And you go to school and you're like, oh my God, I saw like a weird shadow level that I don't, you know, because you know, you saw behind the screen, you saw where they keep the enemies before they spawn them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's why creepypasta exists. And I think it's why it sort of like took the internet by storm, like when it first became like a form of media. Because those are literally just fake horror stories about usually video games, but they can also be other things. Like Bin Drowns or like the Pokemon Black cartridge. Like, oh my God, people love telling stories about like, I don't know, like I almost want to say that's like the inception of fake media almost. Is let me tell a horror story about this game, and then some people actually go like the Bin Drowns creepypasta is like a real game now. You can actually play it and experience that. That's always been like, granted, I'm very easy to frighten, but I've always been super drawn to that sort of thing. And I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know. I don't have all the words for it, but there's just something about like that mystery, the possibility. And that's something that I think like this sort of like era of like fake media, of like unfiction and like fake video games can really like, it can do that where video games really can't do that as much anymore. It's hard to decompile a story about something that doesn't exist, you know, like you can create that and like live in that sort of mysterious part of the brain that thinks that anything could happen and will happen.
Mm. That's one of my as I'm like experiencing each media more frequently and like in tandem. It's the thing that I'm coming to appreciate about TTRPG specifically compared to video games, where a video game is what it is. You know, like if you play Resident Evil 2, it's going to be what it is, and then if you wait 5 years and you play Resident Evil 2, it's still that. Which is, you know, a kind of a big thing that in Soul Cemetery. But if you play a TTRPG and then you play it again in 5 years, it's not going to be the same thing. Like I could almost guarantee, like I would almost put money on it for any number of reasons. You know, if it has a group of people, are you playing it with different people? Are you playing it in a different place? 5 years is a long time. What's happened to you in those 5 years? What's happened to the people that you're playing it with? You know, what, even something as simple as, Apocalypse World or something that's very, not pre-written, but something that's just like, yeah, here's kind of the main idea. Here's the seed, go with it. You know, that could go in any number of directions. And it's the part of it that I'm appreciating more and more is how much of the human element comes through with that's where the art of it is, right? The art of the video game is, look at these character models, look at this writing, look at this music, you know, appreciate the experience that you're having. And then with TTRPGs, it's like enjoy the experience you're having together, this ephemeral thing, this thing that is intangible and like, you know, is gone the second you stop, and in like very enjoyable ways. It is impermanent, and that's part of the joy of it.
I think that's one of the, I mean, I think obviously it's like part of the big me marketing the thing, but like one of the big themes that's like super important to me as like both a creative and like a media critic is that idea that I think that is true of all media. I think media does change with you and without you. Because like, I don't know, there's so many, like there's a reason that I do play Shadow of the Colossus still to this day, and it's because every time I do it, I'm not really, it's like, it's both that I'm having the same experience, sure, but it's also that I'm having all of the experiences from before. What I am like, it's almost, to me, I think media is a great portal that can connect you to all the various different yous that you've been throughout your life. Like when I rewatch Digimon Tamers for the however, millionth time, it feels like I'm connected to that kid that was sitting in front of the TV watching it on the 4Kids network or whatever. Then when I play Resident Evil 2, I feel like I'm connected to that kid that couldn't beat it when I was, really young because I was too scared. And there's a power in that. And like rereading books, there's like a couple books that I reread, and every time I reread them, it feels a little different. I get something different from it. And like sometimes, the same things might make me cry, but then like new things will make me cry in it too, or like I'll feel differently about them. And I do think tabletop games have a bit of a unique relationship to that, in that a tabletop game is like inherently unfinished when you get it, because you are like the final piece that completes it, whether it's like a lyric game and you reading it completes it, or if it's, like you have to get the group together and run a game, and like your GM is going to prep certain material, and like you are sort of that unfinished piece, and it makes that relationship to media that I'm very interested in a lot stronger, because like you can play the same game with the same people, and each time you do it, it's still going to be different. And not just with how, like, not just with like the plot, but also just like each of you are going to be different and feel different. And that is something special that I think tabletop games has I don't think unique, but like a special relationship with when it comes to media. And it's something that I'm just utterly fascinated with. I think my entire life could be boiled down to like me trying to understand my relationship to media. As like an autistic person who feels like they were raised by the television, like media is like core to my being. And it's what I think about all the time. And probably why I was drawn to game design, because it is a media that is, it has that unfinished quality that makes who you are and where you are at that point so much more potent. But I don't think it's entirely unique. I think it's true of all media. And I think each media gets to kind of shape that relationship with the viewer or like the participant. And that's definitely one thing that I liked. I think that's like part of the horror element of Soul Cemetery, is the fact that it's like a game that you are realizing you're remembering wrong. Or perhaps it did change. It's hard to it's up to you to kind of draw that barrier between like, did I just remember it wrong, or has the game changed? Is it like a weird spooky game? Or am I just different? Like, am I different, and that makes me think about these things differently? I think part of it is you get to kind of figure that out for yourself, because you could play, you could read through Soul Cemetery and pretend that it is like a haunted game disc, and that could be true. Like, there's a lot of supporting evidence, and then you could also read it and be like, well, my dad just passed away. Maybe I'm just not in a place that I was when I played it last, and that has made me think about it differently. And each of those can kind of exist, together. And in each person, it'll probably be different.
Hell yeah. Sometimes you just got to give it a second. Like, yeah.
Bars.
Yeah. I can only do this with one hand. I can't. And yeah, I think a sort of salient point coming off of that is like, you said you come back to works, you come back to media, you come back to games, you come back to books. Something that came up when I was chatting with Banana Chan is like the concept of replayability and replaying games and how that works. And I think Soul Cemetery is a very interesting case of like a lot like you said, like, you reread a book and you notice different things, you come to things differently. And I think Soul Cemetery is very interesting in that like you can replay it, but I also think it has the way that I approach a lot of books. I very generally don't reread books. I rewatch movies like very infrequently. I think it has the interesting quality of you can re-experience it. And like you said, it pulls you back to thoughts you had in from the initial time that you read it, and like I said, I read it twice over, a 2-day span. So it was very quick. It's not like I had a big break in between to remember. But it made me think of it specifically, like it triggered memories and thoughts and concepts more than like, oh, like I'm thinking about this character and this place and this like setting. It instead made me think of things from my past and things from other media and things like that. And I don't know if that counts as replay, but I don't know if that is replayability. Is that what it, I always feel like replayability is such a difficult concept. As soon as you get out of the big mass market style games. As soon as we cross the threshold into little freak games, I feel like what as soon as you start to have to define what play is, as soon as play does not mean you roll a die to determine a number, as soon as that becomes even just one more step complicated, what does replaying mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think replayability is one of those, like, it's definitely like a term that's used as opposed to like a term that was I guess a term that's used to describe something that it's maybe not actually describing, which is maybe just like playtime, or like or maybe in the rare cases of a game like Outer Wilds, which is like a game that has a mystery that maybe replaying it isn't as good as the first time, which I don't think I would agree with. But I think like, even like to your point, I think one of the things that I have two thoughts, I guess. The first is that one of the things that I think is interesting, or like that I tried to do with Soul Cemetery, is that like it's asking you to basically assume you've already played it. And so in a way, like, playing it is, if you're like taking on the role of whoever this is, then you are replaying it, and that's sort of like an interesting thing. I was trying to like create little moments that would make you think about, that sort of like, is replaying something the same as like playing it for the first time, or is it like an entirely different game? Because that is a line of thought that I think a lot of media critics have, is that like you never watch the same movie twice, because it's different in some ways. But I also think, oh my god, I think I lost the thought.
Oh no.
Oh no, you mentioned that you had thoughts kind of related to the things in the game, but like from your own life. And that's something that I think is it's a very valuable thing for me when a piece of media can sort of like go in through my eyes or my ears and then like find a place in my brain to live, and become part of like those future conversations about other media. Like, sort of like, you can play, Resident Evil 2 and be thinking about your experience with Resident Evil 1 while you do it. Or something can happen just in your daily life, and it can remind you of something that you saw in a movie. And the way that media can sort of like work its way into, not necessarily like the memory part of your brain, like where like childhood memories are, but it can work itself into a part of the brain that lets you relate your own life in new ways. It creates like a new relationship for you to have with things in your life. And I think, like, even with maybe bigger budget games, I think replayability is almost trying to measure how much space a game takes up in your head. And maybe if it takes up too much space, it's harder to replay it. I'm not entirely sure, but like, replayability it's never been something that I've like valued, I guess, or like looked for. It's usually something that happens because a game or a book or a song like gets into my brain and I think about it a lot. Like, I played Signalis at the beginning of this year, and that was a game that as soon as I finished playing it, I thought about it all the time. Like, the game had a longevity in my brain beyond like the 6 hours it took to beat it. And because of thinking about it all the time, I was like, I need to play it again. Like, I just have to. So I don't know. I think replayability is closely linked to like how much a game makes you think about it, like how long it lives in your brain. Because even like there's plenty of tabletop games that I haven't like played, like games with dice that you're supposed to sit down with people and roll dice for, that I've read, that I still think about like all the time, and that have inspired like my design, or have, you know, every time I'm about to run a new campaign for something, I'm like, can I use that game? I've been thinking about it a lot. Can I use it? And then like everybody's like, no, I want to play the game I already know, and I'm like, you're boring. But
Losers.
That's a whole different discussion. but I think those two things, I think they're related. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, you know, and I think it's an interesting cross section coming from other media to something like TTRPGs. You know, I think there's an interesting cross section, friction, you know, where it doesn't bounce off. It's not like, oh, you can never replay a game or anything like that. It's like, no, like you can, but you know, like you said, you know, kind of the critical thought of like, you can never watch a movie again for you know, how does that, and it's a thing that came up as I was reading this and thinking about it, in a way, you know, comparing to Dungeon, you know, you could play Dungeon any number of times. You could play Songbirds any number of times. And I feel like with Soul Cemetery, there's something so in, you know, no spoilers for Outer Wilds. I'm going to play with my partner. It's a thing. It finally went on sale. I finally bought it. It's finally going to happen. In that way that I really only get with video games of that thing of like, the first time you play the game is so important. And then any time that you play it after that, you're just building or changing or shaping around that first play.
Yeah,
which I think,
I mean, there definitely is something to say about experiencing something for the first time. Like that's obviously like, that is like, and like one of the biggest experiences you will have with a piece of media is the first time you're exposed to it. Just like by, you know, necessity. And yeah, and I can definitely see what you're saying about there being like a difference between like a game like Dot Dungeon and Soul Cemetery. And I wonder if it has to do with the fact that Dot Dungeon is more like a traditional tabletop game where it doesn't have like a, this isn't exactly the word I want, but it doesn't really have like an ending.
That's exactly what
like Soul Cemetery.
That was the same thought I had.
Ending to it.
Yeah, that was the same thought I had. And I think that's the struggle, right? Is like there is a beginning, a middle, and there's an end. There's a point in which you are done, and then you have to decide whether you start again. And the start is the same, and the ending is the same.
I've never really thought about that, but that's interesting to think that like maybe replayability then for like a tabletop game at least is saying or measuring that there's not really an end to that first experience with it. Like if you play a game like Dungeon or like Dungeons and Dragons, even God forbid, there is no like, there's not an ending to that. The media itself doesn't give you an ending, and so maybe like when you start experiencing that as a piece of media, maybe you're always experiencing it. Like maybe that first time is extended because of that, because you never actually reach an end point, even if a campaign ends. Like I don't know, maybe maybe having an ending to something does like change, like fundamentally change like what a piece of media can be. Because you said that you don't like reread or rewatch things a lot, whereas I'm like, I'll rewatch a movie like 3 times in 1 week. and I reread books a lot, and this is like, I didn't used to, but like I don't know, I've definitely become a lot more. Found a lot more enjoyment in something that I can experience a bunch of times. And if I like a movie after I see it in theaters, I will probably go home and try to watch it another way as soon as possible. It could also be like a hyperfixation thing too.
There's always that. That's always an option. That's always on the table. It's just like, in the same way you said Digimon Tamers, and I got very excited because I'm very Digimon pilled right now. I'm very much in Digimon place of my life. And you're like, yeah, watch a Digimon Tamers, and I was literally like, oh.
I've been watching Digimon Tamers since I was like 9 years old. Granted, I like the rest of the series as well, like Adventures and Adventures 2. But Digimon Tamers is, I think it's the peak. I think it's still really good. I think, despite, the writer being a little weird after making it, that's the same guy who wrote Serial Experiments Lane.
Yeah, shocker, he's a weirdo.
Yeah, right. But he has a lot to say about. I think Digimon Tamers has a lot to say about the internet and media in general. And I think it comes down on my side of things, which is like something does not have to be real for it to matter to you, basically. Mm-hmm. Which is like an opinion I have that has like shaped my outlook on media, I guess. But yeah, no, Digimon. I could talk about Digimon all day. I fucking love Digimon so much.
It's good times. That's all I've just been telling everybody. I'm like the card game sicko in me is living right now. I'm very happy.
Yeah. I'm a huge. I think the design of card games is fascinating, and I'm like obsessed with it. But then when it actually comes to playing those games, I need somebody to give me a deck list, or I feel like I'm lost. And I don't. It's just like there's like a switch that's in my brain that hasn't been flipped or anything like that. That just when it comes to actually playing it and being strategic and good, that's where I can't do that. But I can appreciate the design, and want to design my own, but. I just even Pokemon Pocket, I am always looking up deck lists to like what deck list has Gengar on it because I want to play Gengar really bad.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm chasing a Spiritomb card right now for a ghost deck, and that's just the fun of like.
The full art Spiritomb's really good.
It's really good.
Gorgeous.
The full arts are so good. They really the last couple sets they've been just like, what if there were 25 full arts? And it's just like, good, yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the card games, I'm more of a collector. Like my girlfriend I've been wanting to make like a little mini documentary about Pokemon cards because my girlfriend has like this little binder of Pokemon cards that are all like beat to shit. They all have gone through hell, but it is also the most valuable, it's the most valuable, set of cards that she has because she's had them so long and because they've been so torn up. And when she showed it to me, I was just like, I could not stop being like, I want to film this. I need to film this really bad. I know this is a really special moment between us right now, but I want to film it really bad. I'm so sorry.
I have to commit this. We have to.
I need to talk about this. I need to talk about this because it's really special.
I love that. I always love those weird videos you see of people who collect. I saw a TikTok the other day that was talking to a guy about his collection. He only collects Pokemon cards where they're sleeping or they feature sleeping Pokemon. And I just love that. I love people's weird Pokemon card collections where they just decide this is the thing. Yes. And I'm going to collect any card that's this. That's so funny to me. I really just appreciate.
I'm going to start one, but it's only going to be Gengar cards because Gengar is my favorite.
That's great. I love it.
I saw one that was like that, but it was Umbreon cards, and I felt bad for them because I know there's at least a couple Umbreon cards that are several $100s at least.
I just had that same thought of just no.
Yeah, you're asking for trouble with that, but no, I really appreciate the sort of hyper specific collections people make. One of my friends who is an avid collector of not cards, of anime figurines, actually sort of changed my entire like relationship to collecting things, because I asked them, I was like, you know, how do you decide what to get? Because you have all of these things, like how did you choose these specific ones? And they were just like really matter of fact of like, oh, I just picked the ones that I think are good art. And I was like, oh wow, that actually that changed my brain chemistry, because I was never a collector. I hated having a lot of stuff, and now I'm like, oh, if I think it's a good piece of art, like even if it is just a card, then like I should get it. Like I should get things that make me think that, you know, that make me feel good. Like it's that simple, actually.
You somehow got tricked into consumerism. You were like, wait a minute,
Yeah, exactly.
I should buy the things that make me feel good inside. We did it.
My soul is secretly a capitalist because it wants pretty things, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But they're really pretty.
Yeah, that's how it goes. You know, you do the best you can.
That's why I have so many stuffed animals. Most of them are Pokemon.
I mean, you know what they say about having Pokemon toys in your room, right?
And I wish they had more Digimon ones instead.
No, there was a super popular TikTok sound like a year ago that was like, there was just a guy that was like, you know what they say with you got Pokemon toys in your room means you gay. And so the stitches were just everybody showing all the Pokemon toys in their room, and then their pride flag, and it's just like, yeah, there it is. Yep, it tracks. It's true.
Oh, listen, there's like I have a trip to New York City, and like it's like for late next year, for something, and I've told everybody that I'm going with, like, there will at least be one day where I'm going to leave you, and I'm going to go to the Pokemon Center, and I'm going to spend no less than $200, and I'm going to come back. And I don't want anybody to ask any questions or comment on it.
I need everybody to be cool about this. This is going to happen. You can go or not if you want. I'm going. That's that. That's settled.
I took a trip to New York City for spring break like a long time ago. And I felt really, I was with someone who didn't make me feel comfortable buying Pokemon plushies. And I regret it every day. So I'm going back and I'm getting all the ones that I couldn't get. And then just a bunch more Gengars. Every Gengar they got.
Hell yeah. I hope when you go, there's like some cool new Gengar. There's some reason that there's you know.
I hope so too. Godspeed.
Godspeed, you little purple ghost. That was a great tangent. I love that. We're gonna have to hard cut real hard to get back to talking about the game, but also that was fantastic. I loved every second of that.
I made a game. Yeah.
Right, that's what we're doing.
This should have made a Pokemon game.
You put out a Pokemon. You put out a Pokemon game, then you get an email from Nintendo that's just like, you can't do that, and you're like, ah, shit, right? This is why people don't do this, right?
I did have. It's like partially written because I stopped writing it, but I had a game that I was working on that was going to be specifically a journaling game. But it was a journaling game, a 2-player journaling game, where it would be you and your friend both playing a Pokemon game together. Mine was going to be Gen 1 because whatever. I'm at least a little old.
Don't say that. I'm definitely old, so.
And the idea was going to be that you would journal love letters to each other based on where you are, like, on the map in Gen 1. So maybe I should go back to that, because then I could talk about Pokemon on a podcast more.
There you go. Listen, we can talk about Pokemon. Figure it out. I gotta listen. We gotta get into it. What's your favorite Pokemon game? Well, I mean, what's your favorite Pokemon? Probably Gengar. It's come up. Okay, yeah.
Well, so it's a tie between and it's a tie. It's a tie between Gengar and Haunter. Like,
Sure,
I have a
that's
Haunter
fair.
tattoo on my arm, because my best friend got a Ghastly, and so I got the Haunter. So I like Gengar and Haunter quite a lot.
That's fair.
I think Gen 3 was the best generation though. Like, I think it had the best map. I think it had the best new Pokemon. So I'd probably have to say Ruby or Sapphire are my favorites, or Emerald probably. Yeah, Emerald.
I like Ruby Sapphire. Oh yeah, Emerald. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that guy.
I always forget Emerald exists.
That guy. I don't think about Emerald a lot. I'm a shiny hunter, and Emerald has weird shiny hunting RNG. So
Oof.
like, we don't talk about Emerald a lot because of that. So I feel it was very funny. It was the same feeling of like Ruby Sap. Oh yeah, Emerald. Yeah,
Yeah, it's there.
that one too.
I just started shiny hunting because I got a copy of Soul Silver. And I haven't gotten very far because I'm trying to get a shiny Cyndaquil.
Hell yeah.
So when I have like a spare 30 minutes, I just sit there and reset the game for like, 100 times, and then it's like, oh, still didn't get it. Moving on.
Hell yeah. I love I was shiny hunting in Heart Gold for a starter, and I got a shiny Cyndaquil.
Ooh.
And it almost like within the same week, a friend of mine who was also shiny hunting in Heart Gold got a shiny Cyndaquil.
Well, then I just gotta keep going.
I believe
Cyndaquil's my favorite starter.
I believe in you.
Guy.
He's good. He's that's probably my favorite for Gen 2. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
I was really upset when they announced the new Pokemon game and they have like Totodile, Chikorita, and then like Tepig, and it's like, where's Cyndaquil? Where's my boy?
Cyndaquil was in the last one.
Oh, I guess I haven't really played a Pokemon game since Sword and Shield.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't play a lot of them before that since Emerald. So
yeah, Cyndaquil was in Legends Arceus.
Okay, well then I need to get that one.
Yeah,
that's my boy.
You should. It's good. He gets a special new form. Cool little guy.
I have seen that, and it does look pretty cool.
Yeah, I like Legends Arceus. I think it does some interesting stuff with the Pokemon formula. And I'm interested to see what the hell they do in the new one. I don't know how I feel about having to like actually dodge the attacks. I don't know. I'm open to see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not positive or negative on it immediately, and so I'm just like, we'll see how it goes. Worst case, I'll just stand there and take the hits, like God intended. Yeah. All right, we're gonna chart a path back to talking about the game, right? We're gonna take this segue back.
We can do it.
Yeah, I believe in us. So talking about video games, Pokemon, Digimon, all of that. What were kind of the big horror video games that you enjoyed, and what were the more direct influences for Soul Cemetery? What were you kind of pulling more directly from?
Well, I think like the games that I played around the time that like the fake video game Soul Cemetery would have existed, like on the GameCube, was like Resident Evil 4, which again I know is not the scariest Resident Evil, but I also was very easily scared as a kid. And I think at that time it was literally me and my friends would only be playing Resident Evil 4. We'd be doing like the Mercenaries mode, or we would take turns playing Shadow of the Colossus. We would just like, one of us would beat it, and then we would hand the controller over, and then another of us would beat it. And we did that until we had enough stamina to climb the tower. As for more direct influences for the game itself, it would probably be, like, the big one that I was thinking about a lot was, oddly enough, Crow Country, which is like a modern retro horror game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had that sort of aesthetic in my head, because I had just been playing it. I was also thinking about Signalis, which is another sort of modern retro survival horror like game. But then I also was a big fan of like Rule of Rose. Big fan of PT. I still think PT is like the scariest game that's ever been made. And it's sadly a game that we can't really play anymore. But like that's a game that legitimately frightens me every time I watch a playthrough of it. And
I don't
like
think I've watched a full playthrough of it.
I
don't think I've seen a whole thing.
So fucked. And I remember like being in high school, and my friend like came over to spend the night, and he was like, "Hey, there's this new demo for like a Silent Hill game or something that came out." And I remember sitting there and watching him play and not like being able to look at the TV very much. And I think it got to a point where even he had to put the controller down and be like, I don't think I can play this anymore right now.
And that feels like such a fake haunted game story, right? Of like a friend is coming over to stay at your house and they're like, hey, did you hear about this new weird demo? Let me just download it. And then it's this weird, freaky, like fucked looping game that's just like, is the game broken? Like, is there literally a ghost in my PlayStation right now?
And then it's like gone almost as soon as it's there. Like it's taken off the PlayStation Store. The game itself is shelved. Like I think, you know, you can buy a PlayStation with it on it, like still on the hard drive.
I've seen that. That's so funny to me.
On eBay for like thousands of dollars.
It's so funny to me.
I feel like that game was a literal creepypasta, like come to life.
Kojima pasta.
I'm a huge Kojima fan. I think that man is a genius. I think he's crazy. I think he's silly. But I also think he's a genius. But yeah, I think honestly, anytime I'm trying to think about anything horror, like scary, I am like, can I at least try to be as scary as PT? Can I at least try to make myself feel as scared as I was when I played that game? But also, Rule of Rose, I think, is like, I don't know. I think it's what I think of when I think of like survival horror, in the sense that it's like it's not super scary in any way, but it is very unsettling. It's got the tank controls. It's got the camera set in place. It's got the great music. It's got the great atmosphere, and it's also about like childhood trauma. So that, and then like, you know, I played a lot of the Fatal Frame games, which I think are maybe a little more goofy than they are spooky in reality. And played a lot of the Silent Hill games in high school. Oddly enough, I didn't play that much Silent Hill 2. I played a lot more Silent Hill Homecoming, which, you know, has a lot of drama discourse around. I don't know. It wasn't a very good game.
I like drama. I like the use of the word drama in that context.
And then I also played a lot of Silent Hill The Room, which I think was 4. Which I think is a very interesting game. I don't think it's a very good game, but it was very interesting. So those are games that I think about quite a lot. They have a lot of space in my brain.
Yeah, Silent Hill 4 is very weird. I think a lot of the problems with Silent Hill games after Silent Hill 3, not to get discoursey, I think a lot of the problems of Silent Hill, I think it's very difficult to make Silent Hill 2 and then Silent Hill 3 and then make any other game called Silent Hill ever again. Like from a critical reception standpoint, like I think that's kind of, you just kind of have to be like, it's something else now. It's a different thing. And, you know, at a certain point, like, bless them for trying. Like, I think more people shit on Silent Hill 4 unnecessarily, because I think it's a fine game. I think its worst sin is being called Silent Hill 4. You know, I think if it was called The Room.
Yeah. Like, that's the kind of game that if it came out today on like Steam, you know, I almost said Steam Greenlight. I don't even think that's a thing anymore. Early access, or like if it came out on itch, like itch.io, I think that's the kind of game that people would think is excellent. But since it came out after Silent Hill 2 and 3 and was so idiosyncratic, I definitely think it lost something in being like compared to those games. I think it could stand on its own. I just don't think it ever had the chance.
Yeah, and
it was also a very strange game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely had like its own like weird things. It's kind of how I feel about like the Final Fantasy games. Like I feel like the reason so many people hate Final Fantasy VIII is because it wasn't Final Fantasy VII. You know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of weird comparison stuff in media that I'm like, you don't have to compare stuff. You can just kind of take the thing on its own, and you know, these things are definitely in conversation because this is a sequel, but also we can just, you know, we can draw a little line right here and we can appreciate this over here.
Yeah. And with Final Fantasy and Silent Hill, hardly even sequels too.
Right. Yeah.
They don't really follow up, you know.
They're just numerical, you know.
Yeah. They're like related. They're like family members, but they're not like children of each other.
Final Fantasy VIII. Well, what's this one about? We just made another one. Don't worry about it. We opened the file for the we've opened the file for the game, and then we saved it, and then it was Final Fantasy _8, and that's where we. I think talking about the room. This is a great segue. One of the things that I noticed and appreciated a lot in Soul Cemetery was, so at the top, like I compared it, you know, kind of obliquely to journaling games and prompt based games, because it does the thing that prompt based games do, where they're like, oh, this thing happens, how do you feel about this, or what does that make you think of? And there was something so gripping about the way it was done in Soul Cemetery. It was just, there would be, and you know, I come back to the hallway example, like so specifically, the restroom break so specifically, because there is just so much text, there's so much happening, there's so much that's like given to you as the player, and then I don't even think there's anything to like, there's nothing to reflect on until the end. You know, you read the whole page, and then it's just like, wow. It's almost like the book looks at you and is like, yeah, wow, that was scary, huh? Damn. And there's, I'm so interested in this, like, I don't even want to say like experimentation, because I that makes it feel like it's like a snooty art thing. But I think it's so interesting to see that the way this game like guides you explicitly, like it's like, you do this is what happens, this is the thing, you know. And some options didn't even have, like, there would be like 3 options, and the last one would be like, and you know, what does this name tag say? And it would just, it felt such an interesting like dichotomy to the way video games, especially older video games, but video games play now, where, like you said, like you mentioned, like dialogue options, like it feels like someone is just like telling you a quest thing, and then it's just like, oh, do you have anything else? And then you just be like, yeah, what about my brother? And you're like, there's like, you said like 17 things. Can we go back to that? Can we go back to any of the other things you said? All I can do is ask you about my brother. You talked about like the Queen in the Ice Palace. Can we? No? All right. And so I think, to get to my actual question, when you were designing Soul Cemetery, this sort of game, like what sort of ideas do you have around like guided play versus free play? Like I think TTRPGs are such an interesting medium for this, where like some games are just like, you're a fighter, go, you know, do what you want. And at Soul Cemetery is very explicitly like, you are this person, this is the event, this is the place, this is the action. You know, how do you, is that a thing that you find is valuable you know, across the board? Was that a thing that you wanted specifically for Soul Cemetery? You know, is that a thing you went into designing the game to say, I'm going to only provide these sorts of prompts and these prompts of experiences? Or was it something that came out of, I want to emulate these sorts of experiences, and this is how you get to that?
I think it's definitely more of the first. I think I am a bit of a tabletop role-playing game extremist, in that regard, that I have become a lot more demanding and appreciative of the game telling me more. And not like giving me more information, but like telling me, the reader, not even what to do, but like just telling me more. I don't know how else to say. I believe wholeheartedly in I think it's the Shakespeare quote about like if the world is all a stage, then the stage is all the world. The idea that like only in the hyper specific can you find like universality. It's why I am so drawn to like nonfiction a lot more recently, because it's essays of people telling me very specific things about their life. And even if I have not had that experience, there is usually something true or universal in them telling me about their specific experience. And I have become a lot more, like I said, demanding of that from a tabletop game, where I like it. In my head exists a game where I could, like a game like Dungeons and Dragons. I don't need somebody to tell me or allow me to be silly goofy and go fight a dragon. I could sit down with a group of people without a book, and maybe even without dice, and we could do that. What I want, what I demand from people more is I need that perspective. I need my relationship to a thing to either be dictated or changed by reading your book. Like I think a good example is The Last Train to Bremen. I think it's Bremen. Is like a 4-player game that has come out pretty recently, like within the last few months, and they give you characters that you play as part of this band, this traveling band, and that lights my brain on fire. Like I want the hyper specific. I want the game to demand something of me. I want the game to make me be someone else, or to give me someone, and so I can think about who that person is and make them mine and be them, and they can be me. I just want more. And like, so when I was writing Soul Cemetery, I was thinking to myself, what would I want to read right now? Like if I had, like you said, like especially for the bathroom thing, it's like if I read this long thing, what would I want the game to ask of me in that moment? And I tried as best as possible to get specific about the questions I asked. I never really wanted to just ask, how do you feel? I wanted to like present something that needed reacting to, or to ask a leading question. Like I think there's some questions. It's like questions are in the same vein as like, you know, why does that make you feel? Like why does that make you think about your father? Like that's a very leading question, because like you might be reading it and you might not think about your father, and then you have to stop and go, why would this character think that? What? And there's just something about that, something about the game asking something of me that I couldn't provide on my own. And that thing is perspective. I think it's perspective, and I think it's character. And those two things have just become a lot more important to me. And so I think I have, in the last like few months, I've become a bit of a TTRPG extremist, where I want the game, I need the game to demand something of me, whether it's a reaction, or even demand me to play it. There are some games that I've read that it's like I have to play this right now, and that feels very rare, because I think it's only in the specific can we find like that truth, the truth that like all writing is trying to get at. I think one of the things I've always tried to harp on when like talking to people about writing is like, I think my job as a writer is to just say one thing that is true. And if it takes me, thousands of words to get that one thing that's true, then that's okay. It doesn't matter how long it takes to get there, as long as I can get to that one thing that is true. And I don't know if I found it in Soul Cemetery. I guess I won't know until I can look back on it later. But that's why I went really specific with that. Like, I think a lot of the book is kind of autobiographical. Granted, it would be closer to autofiction because Soul Cemetery is not a real game. But, but like the experiences and the questions and the relationships that this character has with the media was very much like me just trying to put as much of myself on the page as possible, so that like hopefully when people read it, they don't feel exactly like me and they can think about things differently. I really value art that makes me change my relationship to a thing, that makes me think about something differently, even if I don't agree with it. And even if I end up discarding it later, like for something to ask me to think about something differently, I think is like a very valuable and important thing that art can do. And not to get like existential, but like I think that's important, because I don't think art can really give you the answers to things. I think all it can do is help you have a different relationship to that thing. So that's long answer, but
no, it's
I'm here to destroy tabletop games with specificity.
No, I think, and I think that speaks to the thing that keeps coming up about games about being weird little guys is if a game just said, if you were just like, here, check out my new game, and it was like, be a weird little guy, and you're like, okay, but like what way, like how, and okay, better game, you're a weird little guy, immediately better game, because now you're telling me. And then it's like, describe his weird hat, and you're like, all right, let's go. Yeah.
I like leading questions. I like a leading question a lot. It says a lot. And I think that's something that what a lot of like journaling games I think tend to miss, is like the questions. I think the questions should be kind of leading. I think they should be biased. I think the questions need to be more biased. Because I can always decide to ignore that bias. I have that agency to say, no, I don't want to think about my father right now, or no, I don't think that's actually true. But like, I need the game to actually be in conversation with me. I don't want it to take it easy on me. I want it to come at me and say, you have to deal with this. Like, you describe your silly little hat. It's like, what if I don't want a hat? My silly little hat is on the ground. I've stepped on it. It's in the mud.
Describe your silly little hat. I stepped on it. That's how I describe it. Like, oh, guess what? You did it though. Like you described it.
You have agency to refute the pointed question, but like, I think the game needs to be pointed. I think that's the only way you can truly feel like you have the agency, or give it up if you want, because that's most of tabletop games, is having agency or choosing to give it up for something, for the story, or for like that one really cool moment, So more specific, ask me about my silly hat. That's the new motto.
Ask me about my silly hat game jam coming soon. I mean, I think that's the fun of it, right? Like that's the is when a game, because what it is at least like when I feel about it, when a game is just like, you're a weird guy, describe your weird guy, and you're like, I don't know. It feels like the game is more sure of itself. It feels like the person who wrote the game was more sure of the idea, was more locked into the idea of like weird little guy game, to be like, no, you are a weird little guy. To play this game, one, you have to assume and accept that you're a weird little guy, and two, you have a hat and you have to describe it, as opposed to what's your weird little guy? Maybe he has a hat. I don't know.
That's one of the games that like really changed my life. Is a game by Avery Adler called Teenage Witch, or Teen Witch. It might just be Teen Witch. And one of the first lines in that game is Avery Adler saying, like, to play this game, you need to be a girl. Like, you have to become a girl.
And it changed your life.
Well, I mean, yes, but also it's just like the game, like, because obviously anybody can still read the book, but the point is that part of the experience is this, and that like evokes. I've tried to, since reading that, I've tried to start every game, like even like the more traditional role-playing games by having a sentence that says you are this, or like to play this game you must blank, because like that just feels like such an evocative, like, okay, it's the game's turn now, and then I will have my turn when it's done. Very much like, you know, Vincent Baker has always tried to hammer home that a game is a conversation. It's like, I think the book needs to start that conversation. I think it needs to be part of the conversation. So yeah, I agree. Yeah. You are a little guy.
Oh God, what was the question I was just gonna ask? Oh fuck. Oh, I got it. So like this is one of those questions where it's like I think I know how you're gonna answer, but sometimes you ask the question and you get fun answers out of it. How do you view like the sort of I guess we'll call like duality of games, like games as a text versus like games as a play, like reading the game versus playing the game? Like, you know, you talked about reading Teen Witch, and it's like, okay, well, you can read the book, sure, like that's fine, but like that's different from playing the game, right? Like how do you sort of draw those parallels? How do you keep those ideas together? Because I think there's something like, I think it's fundamentally different. I think they're two very different experiences. They overlap a little bit in that by playing the game, you'll probably read the book, and by reading the book, you can conceptualize and understand playing the game. But I think there's something so different about, like, I'm reading these words, you know, especially depending on the game. Like, I'm reading these words. Okay, that's fun. And then I'm playing at the table.
I think your opinion is definitely the more like, that's like, I think most people feel that way, actually. I think most people do have like this dichotomy. I think the extremist answer, which I know like some people have, is that like everything is play, everything is a game. And I don't like that answer, because then it's like, why do we have the language of game and play then if it is just everything? The thing I do agree with, though, is that like play is kind of like, it is kind of a nebulous term, in the sense that like we were saying before, like I think one of the earliest things people did was pretend to be their friend and make fun of them. That's like a thing. I think play is like a natural thing we do. And I think it is something that we obviously don't need a game to do. I think what a game is, and what it does really, is an invitation to play in this way. A game book, when it's good, is very much like a friend saying, hey, why don't you come over here and we'll pretend to be the Power Rangers for the afternoon. Or like, we're going to do magical girl stuff tonight. I think that is kind of what a game book is. It is an invitation. And like the reading of the book, I think there are some games that are meant to be read. Like I think, you know, lyric games were heavily inspired by Yoko Ono's instructional poems, which are instructions for play, essentially. A certain kind of play, and sometimes a sad play, but a play. And I think some games are meant to be read as play, either if that's like a thought exercise, or etc. But I do know what you mean, and I do think there is like, I do approach games where I expect you to sit around like a table or sit around in a Discord call, and like roll dice differently than like a more like, I would say, experimental or artistic thing that is meant to be more like a piece of art and less like an interactable invitation. I don't exactly know in what ways I approach those differently, because I don't think I've quite necessarily nailed it down where play ends and begins quite yet. I don't exactly have like the deepest or even like secure thoughts about that. But I do know what you mean, and I think a game primarily is like an invitation to play. And then play is just like I think the natural way humans interact with each other. Like I don't even think we're taught to play. I think we just like I think it is innate to human nature to play. And I think what's great about games, and especially games that are like Teen Witch, for instance, is it's inviting you to play in a way that you wouldn't normally. Because like anybody could, if they wanted to, pretend to be a girl. And they might learn something about themselves. They might not. They might just think it's fun. I mean, people have been doing that ever since plays wouldn't allow women to be on stage, and so the men had to pretend to be women. Like, I think there is a bit of play in the reading of like, you can't take it too literally because it is play. You're supposed to imagine. You're supposed to pretend. And then some games like, 10 Candles is a very artsy game that asks you to play in a very different way. It asks you to gather objects. It asks you to play in a dark room with only candlelight. And that, to me, is only, aesthetically different than like a dungeon crawler that asks you to sit around a table. It asks you to get graph paper. It asks you to put on Rush, 2112. I think there's lots of these different ways that the game can invite you to play. And I think all of them are like, I think a dungeon crawler would be made better if at the beginning it told you, hey, to play this game, just be a dude, bro, tonight.
Yeah.
Grab a sixer of beer and put on the latest Metallica album. Or no, not the latest. Put on an old Metallica album.
Put on 80s Metallica.
Yeah, like I think a dungeon crawler would be made better for that, because it would make me think like, okay, that's the kind of vibe I'm bringing to this character. It's like, I'm the dude bro who's in a frat who's pretending to be an orc, like there is a bit, I don't know, I think there's play in the writing and the reading and the way that it makes you or asks you to experience the game and play it. And I think the further away from that you get, I don't think you really lose something, but I do think there is a difference. Like if you read like AD&D, that's going to be much different than reading. You're going to bring a lot more of yourself to that. You're not going to be inherently taking on so much of what the game is asking you to do. And that's fine. That's like a different way to play. Sort of like, if we were talking, you talked about like the axes. There's like books that ask a lot of you, books that ask nothing of you. And granted, AD&D is probably not the best example because it asks you to do a lot of different math things. But it doesn't really ask you to bring anything specific to that. Like, you're coming to that, just going to play a dungeon crawler. You can role play if you want, but it doesn't really ask you to do that. You could just play by the numbers, and, you don't even have to narrate a lot, versus a game like Teen Witch that asks a lot from you at the very beginning. And I think they're all a valuable and important, like, type of play. I just personally, at least at this point in my life, because this is a very new development for me, am very much in the I want the book to ask a lot of me. Because that's what I find a lot of fun. I even when I run like a dungeon crawler, I'm very much a person who likes to make NPCs so I can act them out. And I'm not even like a theater kid. I just like getting in the mind of something and being like, how does this person think? What are they doing? and in between sessions, I'm thinking like, what's this person doing right now? And then I'll have like an idea, and then so next session I get to introduce like, ooh, well, while we were away, the evil count created a bat that carries a machine gun, or something like that.
Hell yeah.
That's like where I find a lot of the joy is in the role playing aspect of it. And I think like an actor would, they want to know a lot about that character going into that. I don't know if that answers your question exactly. I also don't think I have an exact answer for your question.
Yeah, well,
I don't know entirely.
And I also think it's one of those questions where it's just like, like what do you think? It's come up a couple times in the podcast where I've talked to people and I've just been like when I talked to Ryan about his illustrations, I was just like, art? What do you think? what are your feelings on art? Go. And you're like, what do you mean my feelings on art? What the hell kind of question? I'm like, I don't know, man. Art. Think about it. Tell me about it.
Makes you think.
Yeah, just, I don't know. What thoughts do you have? Share them. We'll talk about it. Okay.
See, I almost feel like it's easier to define art more than it is easier to define play. I think art.
That's interesting.
Because I think art can be easily defined by intentionality. Like, if you look at something and you think that's art to me, that's you deciding it's art. Mm-hmm. That is you giving intention to the work. And that includes like naturally occurring things. Like people take photographs of wilderness all the time. And it's because they look at it and they see something in it. They see art. And to me, that's like a very simple. I have a very simple definition of art. It's like if you want it to be art, it's art because that's all it takes for you to have feelings and to experience something that maybe isn't there. Like, and I'd also think it doesn't need to be there for it to matter. That's like the whole theme of Digimon Tamers. It doesn't have to. It's just data, but it still matters to you.
We brought it back around.
Yeah, Digimon.
Did it. It's all Digimon.
Everything.
It's all Digimon. All right. This will be the last real question, and then we'll have the final question because I've kept you long enough. You've got all of your own stuff to do. I wanted to ask this question because I'm very curious. Like after Dot Dungeon, after Soul Cemetery, both of which are very specifically kind of. I wrote Ludo game, and I don't think that's a thing. I think I broke from the universe for a moment and wrote some weird words. But this concept of playing a game in which you are playing a game, like this secondary layer to it, that I think has sort of come up with you talking about how you want games to demand things of you, right? And both Dot Dungeon and Soul Cemetery start with a similar concept of like you are this character in this situation. And Dot Dungeon is I think a little more open, whereas Soul Cemetery is more specific. What is it about? And I mean, hey, this might be literally the thing we just talked about. Like, what is it about that like space within a space design that sort of speaks to you? The idea of just like, not only are you the person playing this game, you are now also the character playing, because in Dot Dungeon, you are yourself playing a character who's playing a character in an MMO. And like, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. A lesser game would have just been like, yeah, pretend you're playing an old MMO. It's like, no. You are someone listen, this is Dot Hack, dog. You are the guy who sits down and puts the VR headset on and then he is playing the character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a great question. And I think I've spent most of my life trying to figure that out, to figure out what it is I like about that so much. Because I'm going to bring it back around again. That Digimon Tamers was the first thing I saw that made me realize I liked that. Because in Digimon Tamers, Digimon is a card game. Digimon exists as a media property in Digimon Tamers. Mm-hmm. And then the Digimon are actually real. But, like, I it's like the same reason why I like Wes Anderson movies, because they're usually a movie about somebody telling a story,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see the story being told. Or like in Grand Budapest Hotel, it's a story about a girl reading a book about a guy who met another guy, and that guy tells him a story. Like there was I think the closest I've come to answering that question is somebody talking about Wes Anderson, and they, in their like analysis of his works, they said that he just loves stories so much that he wants you to see that it is a story.
Mm.
And that you seeing that it is a story doesn't change how much the movie affects you. And I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but I do like, and I don't even know if I do it as intentionally, I do agree with that. And I do think that even if I point and say, in that dungeon you're playing a person who's playing a game, I think it's almost me testing that I don't think the stuff that happens in the game is going to matter any less to you. Like I think it doesn't matter how long the chain is. It's going whatever happens, it's going to travel back to you, and you're going to feel something. And there's just something about that I find fascinating. Like it doesn't matter how many layers there are. You're still going to be like, oh wow, I don't want this session to end, or like, oh, I really wish that character wouldn't have said that to me. Like I don't exactly know, but I'm gonna keep doing it. There's the mech game I'm working on is.
Wait a minute.
This is gonna be
Hang
one
on.
of those things that you. This is one of those things that you're gonna be able to like clip out of context and use to make fun of me as like, there she goes doing her stupid shit again. But my mecha game is an old cartoon.
Yes. Yes, I love this. I love where this is going. Yes.
It's an old cartoon, and in the cartoon, these people enter a virtual reality thing to enter this mecha world.
Oh hell yeah! It's that one episode of Johnny Quest that I was fucking obsessed with.
Exactly. Or like Code Lyoko. Like I love Code Lyoko growing up. And that's a show about a bunch of French kids who go into a computer and fight viruses.
I always forget about Code Lyoko.
I can never forget about Code Lyoko, even though it's like I've tried to rewatch it and it's really bad, but I still love it. But yeah, I love, and as a writer, it lets me have fun in a way that like a more straightforward thing wouldn't. Because like part of what I liked about that dungeon, and part of why I've kept like writing more stuff about it, is I like world building these fake worlds. I like being like, no, in this world there is a VR headset that lets you enter the like. I like that sort of like writing a fake company's history, and then making that history like exist in the game world itself as like abandoned accounts, and like the destroyed fort of like somebody who used to work for the company. Like I think it's just fun. I just find it fun. I like writing. Like I have in the latest update for Songbirds, there are TV shows you can watch, and I loved writing the fake TV shows that exist in the Songbirds universe. It's just, I mentioned Thursday earlier, but I've been talking to her a lot about this stuff because she's also like super like on the same wavelength as me, and I don't think either of us know why. We just keep trying to push it further and further.
How weird can we be about it? Let's find out.
Yeah. Can we put? I've already decided that Dot Dungeon is a game that exists in Songbirds, so there will eventually be a thing I write for Songbirds that's like a miniature version of the rules of that. Like, so it's getting deeper.
You got to play your Songbirds campaign, and in the middle, you're like, okay, this is the session where we all get in Dot Dungeon. You find a Dot Dungeon disc, and now we got to play Dot Dungeon for a little bit. It's
so fun to me. So I don't know if there's a good reason. I don't know if there's even like an artistic reason. I just think it's fun.
That's a good reason. That's an artistic reason. I just think they're neat is valid and good. I just think they're neat.
I'll wait for somebody else to write like an essay about me, and they can figure that out because I can't. Someone writes an essay and then you watch it, you're like, oh, they're right. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. They got it right. That would be very helpful. Like, somebody please. I have no idea. I need someone smarter than me to tell me what's wrong with me.
I think they call that a therapist.
True. Damn.
Just like, damn, the answer. The answer was there the whole time. Okay. Well, listen. This was fantastic. As these interviews always go, this was a wonderful, wonderful time. I could do this for hours. Sadly, we can't. For a lot of different reasons. But for the final question, this is the 3 question. The first episode I did, I asked my guest, wonderful star, top 3 something. And so at the end of every episode now, I come up with what is your top 3 question during the show? What was it? I had it. Oh no, hang on. I got it. Nope. I remembered it again. Thank you, Grim. That was you. That was your help. And so it's not meant to be like a big thing. This is as much a silly answer as you want to make it a serious one. So Snow, what are your top 3 in-universe fictional properties?
Oh, that's a great question. I've actually been doing a lot of research on this for an essay.
God damn it! Every time I think I've got a great curveball, and all you autistic bitches are like, I've been researching this, so joke's on you, idiot.
Let me bring up my Google Docs real quick.
Oh my god. This is what happened when I interviewed Lola. I was like, I'm gonna ask your favorite planets that aren't in the solar system. And they were like, I got it right here. Boom. I'm ready. I've got them in order. This one, this one, this one. And I was like, I mean, that's a good answer. Damn.
Okay. So some of my favorites, let's see. I really like, well, I think first of all, the first slot has to go to, it's like number 1 is the King in Yellow.
Sure. That's a great example.
It's classic. I love it so much. Let's see. The second one would probably have to be Bandersnatch, the video game inside Bandersnatch, the interactive film on Netflix.
Oh, yeah. I was actually just thinking about that the other day. I was like, I didn't watch that.
I think it's really good. And then the third one, this is a kind of a deeper sci-fi pull, but there's a William Gibson novel called Pattern Recognition, which is a book about a fake movie, basically. And so my number 3 is the fake film in Pattern Recognition. Everybody should read that. It's a really good book.
These are great answers, and I'm mad that you had them so readily available.
I've got a whole list here. They're separated into categories. I've got real paintings in media. I have fictional paintings in media. TV shows.
Fictional paintings is a really fun one because in order for it to in order for it to exist, you had to paint it, and so it's not a fictional painting; it's a real painting.
Yeah,
that's fun.
I love it. Did you? I could. In Breaking Bad. In Breaking Bad, there is a fake painting that Walter. It's not a real painting, but it's presented like a classical painting, and it was specifically ordered by the set designer to look like a specific classical like style from like a certain classical painter. It's in the very first episode when he's like sitting in the, it might not be the first episode, it might be one of the cancer treatment episodes, but it's the painting of the man in the boat rowing away from his family. And Walter like looks at it and is like studying it and obviously feels something for it. And I think about that painting all the time because I thought it was a real painting. And then I found out that the show ordered it. Like, they had it made specifically for the show. And I was like, that's so cool.
I didn't know you could do that.
Well, it's like, because in Ferris Bueller, they have the same sort of relationship with art, but like he's looking at real art in the Chicago Art Museum, and it's like I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with art within art. Like it's my current hyperfixation.
I love it.
Not
I love
distract from.
No, this is perfect. Also, I'm going to say this on air so you can't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me. I'm definitely going to send you like 4 YouTube videos as soon as we're done with this interview on like abandoned MMOs and like fake. Did you ever play or watch a video on the My House Doom WOD?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was definitely going to be one of those of like, if you don't know about that, I definitely have to send you a video on that. I've
watched so many playthroughs of that.
The only like 3-hour video essay that my partner was ever like was in the room when I started watching, and then was actively engaged with, and then was like, I have to leave the room. You have to pause this. One of the few times it's actually grabbed her, and I was like, it's very special to me for that. But again, damn you for having those answers so readily available, but they were fantastic answers.
I had a whole Google Doc ready.
But with that, we have to be done because it's been 2 hours, and that's more than enough.
Oh wow.
And that's more than enough for all. Yeah, my last interview, he was like, my podcast is only 20 minutes, so I don't know how we're gonna do 2 hours. And then at the end of the 2 hours, he was like, wow, that was 2 hours. That was fast. We did. I was like, yeah, you were worried. We did it.
Talking is fun. We love talking.
Boy, autistics love talking. Let's eat that shit up. But here at the end, so I'll give you one last sort of little outro bit so everybody knows. Where can people find you? What are you working on? Where do you want to steer people to? The podcast I just did had a great thing at the end that I'm absolutely going to steal, and I'm going to have to tell them that I'm stealing that. What is a piece of homework for the people listening? He hit me with that question. I was like, this is the best thing. I've never heard this. This is fantastic. But yeah, just a little outro right here before the end. Okay,
well, homework assignment. I think everybody should read Pattern Recognition. William Gibson is legendary sci-fi author, wrote Neuromancer, which was like the birth of cyberpunk. Pattern Recognition is good. Go read it. You can find me, you could literally just open Google and type Snow TTRPG, and you will probably find my itch page immediately. You can find me on Substack, which is where I post. I've been posting like once a week, just doing like this new segment, this new thing called TTRPG School, where I am trying to get people to read more games and talk more analytically about games. I have a review of Lancer on there that I think is pretty good. And so Soul Cemetery just wrapped up. I would keep an eye out for me, and Charlotte actually are working on a hack of Mothership called Dull Scythe. And so we'll be talking more about that. It's a magical girl game, and it's very exciting.
Oh, okay. Hi. Hello.
Yeah. Yippee. I think this is the first time any of us have said anything except in little tiny private Discords. So
that's exciting.
Sorry, Charlotte.
Should have said don't mention it on a podcast. Like, oh damn. Okay, now I can't. Yeah, and as always, all the links will be in the show notes. All the links to all of Snow's various things, all the stuff we talk about will be in the show notes. So yeah, that's been another one. Snow, thank you so much for sitting down. I didn't gush hard enough at the intro. Snow was among the group of people that I was like, after I get like a good like 20-25 episodes, maybe Snow will be on it. And then I said that out loud to Charlotte, and Charlotte was like, you should ask her. I'm going to send you her email. So do it. And I was like, all right, damn, I guess I will. So this was fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time at a very busy point. Thank you so much. But yeah, maybe we'll be back to talk about Dull Scythe. I'm excited about that, if nothing else.
If you get me and Charlotte on here, you wouldn't have to do anything. We would just yap the whole time. So
That's fine. That's great. That's that makes my job way easier. But yeah, this will be the end. Snow, go ahead and say bye, everybody. There we go, another episode done. First off, I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you as always for listening to the podcast. And thank you so much to Snow for taking time out of a very, very busy time for her to sit down and chat with me about Soul Cemetery. You'll find a link to Soul Cemetery on itch, as well as everything, as always, in the show notes. I highly recommend you check it out. It is very unique, very interesting. I had a wonderful time reading it, playing it. I highly recommend you go check out more of Snow's works. I've read both Dot Dungeon and Songbirds, and both of them are fantastic. If you keep up with all of the itch charity bundles, you will absolutely have one or both of them. Reminder, if you want to see the video versions of these episodes, there's a YouTube playlist in the show notes. You can go check that out. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to it so you see when there's new episodes, that sort of thing. I haven't mentioned it for a little bit, but I stream 5 days a week over on Twitch, twitch.tv/mattcaulder. You come hang out, see what's going on. You might have a good time. I'd love to have you. If you haven't yet, please consider rating the show on whatever platform you listen to, especially iTunes. Apparently iTunes is the big one. And share it with a friend. Tell somebody, hey, I just heard this cool interview with this cool designer. You should check it out too. But that's enough out of me. I got to go do some cleaning. So I'll see you all in the next one.